Ardmore has an acting city manager and a solid waste agreement. Two locals are bringing their own flavor of a popular fitness race to town. And the local arts community is mourning the loss of one of their youngest and brightest stars. These stories and more on This Week in Ardmore from Ardmore Leader. I'm News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thanks for downloading episode 70 of This Week in Ardmore, a weekly podcast from Ardmore Leader dedicated to independent coverage of local news. This week's episode is sponsored by Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall, 105 East Main Street in downtown Ardmore. Right now, let's catch up on the things I've been following around Ardmore, Oklahoma for the week of July 10th. A brief public meeting of the Ardmore City Commission on Monday ended with an interim city manager and a solid waste agreement for the next 5 years. The Ardmore City Commission has appointed Sean Guerin to serve as the top official for City Hall, having served as Public Works Director and most recently Assistant City Manager. Guerin is the interim city manager, and he was selected after City Manager Kevin Boatwright last month announced his upcoming retirement at the end of the summer. The City Commission also declared July as Parks and Recreation Month, and they approved a new 5-year municipal solid waste agreement with Southern Oklahoma Regional Disposal, or SORD. That renewal sets maximum annual rate increases for the next 5 years. The Southern Tech Board of Education met on Thursday for their regular meeting of the month. That agenda included a closed-door meeting to discuss legal matters and a potential real estate purchase, with public discussion including out-of-state travel requests for upcoming professional conferences, a renewal of school credit recovery curriculum, and several administrative personnel reassignments. Lighthouse Behavioral Wellness Centers has been selected by state mental health officials to manage administration and mental health services across southwest Oklahoma. The organization is expanding westward from 9 counties to 17, and last year, the organization employed over 400 people to serve over 16,000 clients. The Ardmore Family YMCA this week took a look at a local health trend with their column on functional fitness done well in Ardmore. They talked about a husband and wife team helping locals explore how to move away from isolated gym machines and embrace real-world full-body compound movements as a way to challenge oneself. That couple also competes in national high rocks competitions, and they even took first place in a recent race in New York City. Some of these stories are in the Ardmore Leader weekly newsletter that's out today. You can find it at a handful of downtown businesses, or you can get it delivered to your email inbox for free by visiting our website, ardmoreleader.com. Join over 100 of your neighbors in getting an independent look at local news and events delivered straight to your email inbox. There's no annoying spam emails, there's no subscription fees. It's just a professional newsletter with things that you can't see on this podcast. Plus, you can learn about more local businesses that are showing their support in advancing local news. In that newsletter this week is part 3 of my deep dive into Ardmore's network of flock safety cameras. The story was featured on last week's podcast. The printed edition, though, that includes a graph showing that most local flock searches don't include required auditing information. You can also find that entire investigative series over on the website, ardmoreleader.com. Also in the printed newsletter this weekend, we have a submitted poem titled Dear Matthew, inspired by the death of 8-year-old Matthew Miller last week. Miller was a student at Oak Hall Episcopal School, and he became a staple in the local arts community, having taken part in multiple theater productions while living with pulmonary hypertension. Memorial services for Matthew Miller were held earlier on this Friday. If you ever want your thoughts, ideas, poems, stories, photos, anything like that in Ardmore's newest and fastest growing media channels, we have opportunities for that as well over on our website, ardmoreleader.com. Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele will be wrapping up our in-depth look at news with his Edward Jones Market Snapshot commentary for Friday. Cody will give us an idea this week of what to expect next week with the release of multiple key market data points. And stick around until the very end of the podcast because every episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule. As always, I'll have details about some upcoming public meetings. I'll also have some early information about back-to-school season. We've got enrollment dates happening at Ardmore City Schools next week, enrollment happening at Plainview later this month. I've also got a call for area barbers and stylists that want to help students get ready for school. But for right now, that's the headlines. Thanks again to Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall in downtown Ardmore for the support I'll tell you more about them after we dive into what I've been following this week in Ardmore for the week of July 10th, 2026. Ardmore has renewed a contract for solid waste disposal that will see caps on annual rate hikes. The Ardmore City Commission back on Monday approved the 5-year agreement with Southern Oklahoma Regional Disposal, or SORD, after the previous agreement expired last month. Under these new terms, Ardmore's disposal rates will remain unchanged for the first year. But for years 2 through 5, the agreement establishes strict maximum caps on potential rate hikes at about 10%, essentially to protect the city from runaway costs. During the meeting, City Public Works Director Melissa Lang clarified that these percentages are not guaranteed automatic increases, but they're rather more like worst-case scenario ceilings that can be driven by the rising costs of fuel, manpower, and the heavy equipment used at that SORD landfill. Here's Melissa Lang from the city's live stream of the commission meeting back on Monday.
Their reasoning is, of course, the cost. Cost of everything has increased. Equipment costs, fuel costs, manpower, the financial stability of the local landfill.
Now, any actual rate hikes within those new limits must receive formal approval from the SORD board before they can take effect. Commissioners also questioned how Ardmore's rates compare to neighboring towns, Lang noting that Ardmore is actually the largest waste producer among SORD's 9 membership municipalities. All 9 member cities pay the exact same baseline rate, while non-member towns are charged higher non-member fees. The Ardmore Family YMCA is getting ready to show locals a growing trend in fitness after 2 locals shined in a New York City competition earlier this year. Husband and wife duo Angie and Kyle Kennedy recently competed in the High Rocks race, along with about 50,000 other athletes taking part in multiple events. That duo won first place in their mixed doubles race. Last year, the Kennedys started The Well over at the Ardmore Family YMCA in an effort to help hybrid athletes train for functional fitness. Last month, they started holding a functional fitness event inspired by this High Rocks, and so far, over 20 people have experienced this kind of simulated race. Now, instead of a workout routine that focuses on traditional exercises that isolate individual muscles, looking into what functional fitness is, it looks like it focuses on compound movements, things like burpees and squats and lunges, in an effort to train the entire body to work as one. Now, Angie Kennedy was quoted in the submitted article as saying that this is a great way or a great opportunity for anyone who is interested in participating in any competitive event or anyone who wants to experience this type of training to feel what it takes to compete. To learn more about participating in or training for an upcoming event, you can contact the Ardmore Family YMCA at 223-3990 and then ask for Angie Kennedy or Amy Heller. Right now, let's wrap up our look at in-depth news with Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele. Let's hear about some stocks of local interest, how they finished up this trading week, right after his Edward Jones Market Snapshot commentary from Friday afternoon.
This is financial advisor Cody Steele from Edward Jones, bringing you the daily financial market report. U.S. equity markets closed higher on Friday, with investors awaiting a busy week ahead of economic and earnings data, headlined by U.S. bank earnings and consumer price index, CPI, inflation for June. From a leadership perspective, most S&P 500 sectors finished today flat to higher, led by communication services and materials. Contrarily, healthcare was the only sector to finish in the red. Bond yields were little changed on the day, with the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield finishing at 4.56% and the 2-year yield at 4.2%. Geopolitical tensions remain in focus after a re-escalation of military activity between the U.S. and Iran this week. However, with no incremental news flow on the conflict, oil prices were little changed Friday, with WTI crude oil closing just below $72 a barrel. Key economic data and corporate earnings results will likely be front and center in the week ahead. On the economic front, we'll get a read on inflation with the Consumer Price Index CPI out on Tuesday and Producer Price Index PPI inflation for June out on Wednesday. We'll also get a look at recent consumer spending trends with retail sales for June due Thursday, along with the slew of housing market data on Friday. Corporate earnings will also be in focus, with several large U.S. financial services institutions slated to announce second quarter results and analysts calling for S&P 500's second quarter earnings growth of nearly 25%. On the economic side, we've seen resilient activity in recent months, characterized by stable labor market conditions, solid consumer spending trends, and a resurgence in manufacturing activity. This has come despite persistent inflationary pressure, with headline and core CPI posting annual gains of 4.2% and 2.9%, respectively, in May, well above the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation target. In our view, the current economic backdrop remains favorable for equity markets, underpinned by healthy economic activity and stable earnings growth. Specifically, we believe opportunities are attractive in the U.S. large and mid-cap stocks, which should benefit from strong earnings momentum, along with a solid economic backdrop, in our view, as well as emerging market equities, which can provide investors with global exposure to technology and an AI theme, while the MSCI Emerging Markets Index trades at a slight discount to a 10-year average forward price to earnings multiple. After a surge in activity coming out of the pandemic, driven by low borrowing costs and households that were flush with cash, housing market activity has stagnated in recent years as households adjust to higher home prices and higher borrowing costs. We saw further evidence of this yesterday, with existing home sales for June falling by 2.4% for the month, below expectations, albeit modestly higher on a year-over-year basis. Since 2023, monthly existing home sales have run at an annualized rate of roughly 4.1 million, well below the 2015 through 2019 average of roughly 5.4 million. While this could, in part, reflect low levels of inventory for existing homes in recent years, as existing homeowners have been reluctant to sell homes with below current market mortgage rates, new home sales show a similar pattern, trending roughly sideways since 2023. While we don't expect borrowing costs to return to 2021 levels, we think there is hope for an improvement on the affordability front, particularly as annual wage growth has outpaced home price growth, as measured by the S&P Case-Shiller U.S. National Home Price Index for 15 consecutive months. Should this trend continue over time, it could provide improvement at the margin for housing market activity. From an economic standpoint, while housing market activity could remain subdued this year, the good news, in our view, is that we've seen solid trends in other drivers of growth, such as household consumption and business investment, which we believe will be the primary drivers of economic growth over the remainder of the year. Today, U.S. equities closed higher. The Dow closed up 150 points, or 0.29%, at 52,637. The NASDAQ closed up 75 points, or 0.29%, at 26,282. The S&P 500 closed up 32 points, or 0.42%, at 7,575. And in the bond market, 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 4.56%, higher by 0.01 percentage points. In stocks of local interest, Walmart was up $1.69 to $113.90 a share. Dollar General was up $3.19 to $118.92 a share. Dollar Tree was up $3.99 to $124.91 a share. Albertsons was up 42 cents to $14.76 a share. Best Buy was up $2.81 to $82.80 a share. Valero was down 56 cents to $280.69 a share. ExxonMobil was up $1.42 to $138.88 a share. And lastly, OG&E was up 36 cents to $48.65 a share. In commodity markets, the price of crude oil was down 48 cents, or 0.67%, at $71.60 a barrel. And the spot price of gold was down $27.60, or 0.67%, to $4,113.20 an ounce. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cody Steele, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 333 West Main Street, Suite 275 in Ardmore, Oklahoma. If you would like additional information, please contact me at 580-223-3870. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
Hey, does your group or organization have a public event coming up? Every episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule to give listeners an idea of a few things that happen around town. Email me your event details to connect@ardmoreleader.com, or you can even give me a call, 319-9688, and tell me all about it. You can also text that number with event details. You can also text me news tips, photos you might want to share with the community. Text 580-319-9688, and let's advance local news together. Stick around, the schedule is coming right up, but I want to tell you that this week's podcast is sponsored by Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall, right here in downtown Ardmore. When you find yourself looking for a birthday gift, an anniversary present, or just something that you don't think you're going to find in any of the big box stores in town, come downtown and head over to 105 East Main Street and browse what over 70 vendors have to offer at Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall. They have vintage decor, they have furniture, they have jewelry, old tools, collectibles, all sorts of stuff. 105 East Main Street. You can also find them on Facebook or online at ardmoreemporiumantiques.com. Big thanks again to Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall for helping Ardmore Leader advance local news. All right, let's make this fast. Call or text us at 580-319-9688 if you have questions about what we're doing, if you have something you want Ardmore to know about, or if you want to promote your business as a supporter of an independent source of accurate, verified local news and information. You can also submit a letter to the editor by finding the opinion section of the website, ardmoreleader.com, or email me a cool picture you took, email me a voice note on your phone for the podcast, email me a cartoon, a drawing, connect@ardmoreleader.com. Now, if your group or organization has a public event coming up, again, let me know and I'll get it on the schedule. In public meetings next week, the Carter County Commission will hold their regular meeting on Monday morning, July 13th at 9 a.m. at the County Administration Building on the corner of A Street and Broadway in downtown Ardmore. That agenda is available over on the county's website, cartercountyok.us. The Plainview Public Schools Board of Education will hold a special meeting coming up on Wednesday, July 15th at 12 noon in the boardroom of the district's administration office. That agenda has not yet been released, but is expected to be available on the district's website, plainview.k12.ok.us, by Monday, July 13th. Enrollment for both Ardmore school districts is coming up this month. Ardmore City Schools has in-person enrollment happening over 2 days next week. The youngest students up to 3rd grade will be enrolling at the high school gym. 7th and 8th grade students will enroll at the middle school cafeteria, and then high school students will enroll at the high school cafeteria. All students will require a proof of residency, things like a lease or mortgage agreement or even a recent utility bill. Birth certificates and immunization records will be required for pre-K and kindergarten students. Those immunization records will also be required for 7th grade students. The Ardmore City Schools enrollment days will be happening for 2 days next week, on the afternoon of Tuesday, July 14th, from 1 p.m. until 7 p.m., and then again the morning of Wednesday, July 15th, from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. Online enrollment is also open now, with information on that on the district's website, ardmoreschools.org. If you have any questions, you can contact the district enrollment office by calling 221-3001, extension 1505. And enrollment for families in the Plainview School District is scheduled for July 30th. Don't forget Food Truck Friday happening every Friday this summer, right here in downtown Ardmore over at Depot Park. Catch up with neighbors, you can visit some downtown merchants, and then go grab a lunch from food trucks and other vendors over in the park. The Food Truck Friday, hosted by the Ardmore Main Street Authority, happens every Friday from 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. in Depot Park. Families will get a chance to touch a truck coming up at Cardinal Park next week. Coming up on Wednesday, July 15th, take the kids over to Cardinal Park, where HFE Wilson Community Center will be inviting unique cars and trucks for hands-on activities. And hey, if you have a cool vehicle you might want to showcase, reach out to HFE Wilson and ask for TWiA. The Touch a Truck event at Cardinal Park is happening on Wednesday, July 15th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. And hey, calling all barbers, stylists, beauticians, even braiders. The HFE Wilson Community Center is getting ready for their annual Back to School Bash next month, and they're looking for some locals that are willing to get students trimmed up and ready for the new school year. The Back to School Bash is currently scheduled for Monday, August 10th, and part of that event means free haircuts for students before they head back to class. So if you think you might want to help provide an awesome service to help the youngest Ardmorites get back into the classroom with some confidence, reach out to the HFE Wilson Community Center by calling 580-319-5350. Hey, I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thanks so much for listening to episode 70 of This Week in Ardmore. Follow us online, ardmoreleader.com, or on social media. And until next Friday, I hope you have a positive week ahead.